Well, as many of you may know, I picked a stock on Monday that ultimately went up more than 3,000%. I'm going to show you what that stock was, why I picked it, and how I found it. Plus, I'll do my normal market analysis, and then at the end of the video, we'll do the trade of the week. All right, so what was the stock? Why did I pick it? And how did I find it? Well, first of all, the stock was DRUG. And many of you are already subscribers to my free weekly email newsletter. It comes out every Monday. And in that newsletter, I picked DRUG along with two other stocks. If you want to subscribe to that newsletter, just go to stockscores.com. On the homepage, there's a link there where you can register for that. Again, it's totally free. I pick stocks. I do some market analysis, some general trading tactics, that sort of thing. All right, so why did I pick it on Monday? Well, the stock was trading with abnormal volume and abnormal price action. I ran a market scan on the StockScores market scanner using something called the abnormal break strategy. And in that scan, it looks for stocks that are trading with abnormal volume and abnormal price action. Now, the reason is pretty simple. When stocks are doing that, they are doing so because there's strong buying from people that know the most about the company. And I learned a long time ago that if I try to trade on information, if I'm looking for what people are saying, what the news releases are saying, what the media is saying, usually by the time that information is out, it's already priced in, and therefore it doesn't have a lot of value. I want to know what the information that's going to come out tomorrow, the next day, is going to be. And that is something that some people know, and when those people have better information, they will act in the market and they will create abnormal activity. So, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, I created some algorithms that look for statistically significant abnormal price action and abnormal volume. Now, in last week's video, I talked about how the biggest gainers are stocks that trade abnormally with strong liquidity and have a low float. And if you want, you can go look at last week's video on the StockScores YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel because these videos are coming out every week. In that video, that's what I said to look for. And then in the newsletter on Monday, I did exactly that. And DRUG was one of the stocks that I found. And it was trading at about $2.50 a share when I sent out the email. I have no idea what this company does. I don't care, doesn't matter. What matters is the people that know the most were buying the stock aggressively, and they were creating the abnormal activity that my algorithms look for. Now, if you've been on this YouTube channel for a while, you'll know I have an indicator that I've created called the action candle. And if we look on screen on here, you can see that these little pink dots here are the action candles. So this is Monday, this is Monday right here. And there were some action candles towards the end of the day. That's why I featured it in the newsletter. And then they started coming up again on Tuesday, and the stock actually was up quite a bit Tuesday morning, but these were the ones that caught my attention. Now, it doesn't look like much because the scale of this trade got so pulled upward because the stock, as you can see, ultimately hit $79, almost $80 a share, starting the week way back here at $1.25. Right here, that was at $2.50. The stock had already doubled that day. You can't tell because, again, the scale is so skewed, but that's why I featured it. Again, I don't know anything about the company. I just follow market activity using my market scan tool. And if you want to learn more about that, go look at some of the videos that I've uploaded this past week. Just go to the StockScores YouTube channel. You'll see that there's 3 or 4 videos this past week that talk about my techniques, my approach. So what did I do? Featured that stock free in my newsletter and then publicly put it out there. We then traded the stock a number of other times through the week. I'll come back to that at the end of the video and show the exact reasons for buying it, more so as day trades on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all through the week. It was a really hot stock to trade. All right, let's get into this week's market analysis. I'm going to jump to the StockScores website and we'll go through our normal analysis, and then I'll come back to that trade of the week at the end of the video. First chart is the S&P 500. Short term, it's bullish. We're in an upward trend. I would say the momentum is waning a little bit because the pace of rising bottoms is faster than the pace of the rising tops. So that's a pattern called a rising wedge. Now, rising wedges are only a concern if you break down through the bottom of the pattern. That hasn't happened yet. So it's still a bullish market and looks pretty good. I want to take a quick look at the 3-year weekly chart, and you can see that it's a steady linear upward trend. So that's a positive, and I don't see any reason to not be in the market right now. It looks fairly solid. Let's jump to the NASDAQ 100. QQQ is the symbol. It's been lagging the large cap S&P 500 stocks because a lot of these tech stocks had a really big run here, and then now they've been going through some profit taking. And so you can see that same rising wedge pattern on the NASDAQ, but it's still below resistance. And so it's not as strong a looking a market. I think there's better places than the NASDAQ 100, the big tech stocks. There's probably some better places that we're seeing money rotating out of those large cap tech and into the smaller cap. And that's the next chart I want to show is the Russell 2000. So this is the daily chart. What I'm going to jump to is the 3-year weekly chart, because here you can see that this week the Russell made a little break out of this pennant pattern, and that should lead to higher prices for the broader market, the small cap stocks, which this week really had a great week, and I'm starting to see that money flow into those small cap stocks in the US. Now the Canadian market really starting to accelerate to the upside, mostly on the strength of mining. Not only gold stocks, but silver, uranium, lithium, all of these commodities are doing well outside of one commodity, which I'll talk about in just a moment. Let's take a look at the gold chart, GLD, and it's benefiting in many ways from the fact that Costco is selling like $100 million worth of gold per month, I've been told anyway. And you can see there that the trend for gold is starting to go parabolic. When trends go parabolic, it's usually about the time that they get some profit taking. Now there's no sign of weakness yet in gold, so I think you can still stick with the trade, but be careful because it is getting risky. Now let's look at that commodity that is not keeping up with the things that hurt when you drop them on your foot, and that is oil. Oil is lagging. It had some downward pressure this past week. Again, Middle East tensions sort of easing up, and that caused the market to move down. It's really a neutral chart. We're in this pattern here that's not a bad pattern, but it's been essentially sideways for a year and a half. And until we break one way or the other, it's hard to get a sense of where the trend is going. It's just kind of a dead market on oil. Let's move along to the currency markets. UUP is the US dollar. You can see a great run for the US dollar as the market starts to think that maybe the US economy is quite strong and the US Federal Reserve won't lower rates as much as had been previously thought. And that's what helped the US dollar go higher. It's now at some resistance here. So I think the US dollar actually goes lower in the next couple of weeks. I'll talk about why in just a moment. I'm going to show you another chart. But first, let's take a look at the market for Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a bit of a week, a little bit of an upside move, but it's still inside this longer term downward sloping channel. Lots of volatility, which means there's lots of uncertainty. Here's the 3-year weekly chart. You can see how it went parabolic, and when parabolic trends get broken, it's usually dead for a while. And I think that's a best way to put it on Bitcoin. I don't think it's dead longer term, but in the short term, it just seems to be unable to really grab a trend. Now the last chart we're going to look at is TLT. TLT is the US Treasury bond market, and you can see that it's the inverse of the US dollar. So it's been moving down for the last month and a half. The US dollar has been moving up, and the reason why I think the US dollar may reverse is because the bond market is right at this important support zone, bouncing off of this trend line that has been hit multiple times. Now it has not yet reversed the downward trend of the last week or a month and a half, but it could soon. Chart you want to watch there is this chart, which is the bond market intraday, and there is our downward sloping channel. I didn't draw that great, but you get the idea. Notice that there's a rising bottom that's built here. And so if we see the bond market this week move up through that downward trend line, then I think you're going to see the bond market start to make some gains, which means interest rates will come down. That will be supportive for the small cap stocks, for the broader market of stocks outside of those large cap tech stocks, and it's going to help ease the US dollar back, which has really had a strong run. So, if you were a Canadian and you were hoping to go to the US for a vacation, maybe hold off a little bit, because I do think the US dollar may pull back a little bit in the short term. So let's jump into my ratings then. Bullish on both time frames for US large cap stocks, but neutral for NASDAQ in the long term. For small cap, for Canadian stocks, for gold, bullish on all time frames. Oil, neutral on both time frames. US dollar, bullish, short term, long term neutral. Bitcoin, bullish and long term neutral. And then bonds, still bearish in the short term, but it may turn soon, and that's long term neutral. All right, let's get into the Stock Scores trade of the week. And that was that same stock that I picked on Monday, up 3,000%, but there was also some day trading opportunities through the week. So we're going to jump into Monday's action, which was the day when it made another day trade right there. Again, really hard to tell, but you can see my little pink and yellow dots. That's my indicator firing. And that was, I think the first one fired at about 9:33 a.m. Eastern time on Monday. And that led to this really nice move, which was hard to believe. You know, the stock went from under $5 to $17. And I just thought, wow, what an amazing stock. And I thought it was done for the day. But then it fired another pattern break a little later. Here it is. If I draw a line like this, and you see the action candles firing there again, breaking the pullback from a bottom that is rising. And that led to the next upward trend, up to $29. Okay, at that point you think, it's done. It can't possibly go any higher. One thing I learned the hard way many years ago is don't try to make sense of the market, because it often does not make sense. There was another pullback. See this little blue dot there? That's another strategy I have called a early riser or wave up strategy, and it led to this other next gain from $20 to $30. You think it's got to be done now, but yet there was another pullback break right there, and another one right here for the rally into the close. And then, as many of you may know, late in the week it went up to almost $80 a share. So how do you find these things? Well, if you want to learn more about that, check out the video that I did this past Thursday. That video was on day trading, on swing trading, my approach to that. It's on the Stock Scores YouTube channel. You can give it a look there. I hope you have enjoyed this week's video. And remember, a lot of this stuff is free. The channel's free, subscribe to it. My newsletter on stockscores.com is free, subscribe to that one. If you've enjoyed this video, do me a favor, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, trade well.